The illusion of pleasure in a starving age. They say pleasure is the reward, the light at the end of the tunnel, the prize we chase after a long day, the fleeting relief from pain. But what if this pleasure is not what it seems? What if it is merely a mask, a clever disguise, hiding something far older, far deeper, and far more painful? The chocolate, the endless scroll, the lust, the laugh. These are shadows, illusions dressed up to conceal a hunger that no surface satisfaction can ever reach. Ask yourself, when was the last time you felt truly full? Not just satisfied, not merely entertained, but profoundly untouched by craving, whole and complete in your presence. The truth is, we live in an age drowning in pleasure, yet starving in our souls. We drown ourselves in distractions, but beneath it all, a deeper ache persists. Carl Jung warned us that the comforts we chase are often the very chains that keep us from healing. He called this hidden part of ourselves the shadow, a secret self buried beneath layers of distraction. Pleasure, then, becomes the shovel we use to bury that shadow, numbing our awareness so we don't have to face the parts of us that are broken, afraid, or lonely. Think about it. Scrolling through your phone isn't curiosity. Eating without hunger isn't nourishment. Desiring without love isn't connection. These are acts of anesthesia, not joy. The pleasure we chase isn't pleasure at all. It's relief from ourselves, a desperate attempt to escape the discomfort of presence. But every hit of this false pleasure deepens our hunger for something real. And when that hunger goes unmet, we feel broken. Not because something is wrong with us, but because we've been conditioned to mistake escape for enjoyment, symptoms for solutions. From the time we were children, we learned that feeling bad gets us nowhere, but smiling, performing, distracting, those bring approval. This reward system wires us to silence pain with pleasure, teaching us that stillness is unbearable and silence is punishment. We become trapped in a cycle where pleasure is loud, pain is quiet, and the child inside us who simply wanted to be held is drowned out by noise. The hidden cost of pleasure, fear of stillness. As we grow, this cycle deepens. Our pain becomes unspoken, buried beneath louder pleasures, louder than loneliness, louder than fear, louder than the quiet cry of the child inside us, longing to be held. But here's a secret most never realize. Pleasure has memory. Every time we use it to silence pain, we wire our bodies to fear stillness. Stillness becomes unbearable. That's why we can't sit alone. That's why we need music in the shower, noise in the background, constant distraction. Carl Jung understood this intimately. He saw pleasure, when misused, not as a friend, but as the enemy of the soul. Not because pleasure itself is evil, but because it allows us to avoid the very truths that demand healing. The true enemy is the avoidance, the refusal to face our inner shadows. Now pause for a moment. If you've ever felt that strange guilt after indulging in something that should have brought you joy, you are not alone. That guilt is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of awakening. It means you are beginning to witness the truth behind the mask of pleasure. Imagine a person lost in a desert, chasing mirages. Every time they reach out, the mirage fades, but they don't stop chasing, believing the next one will be real. That's what pleasure becomes when it has no purpose. A cruel mirage, always disappearing just as we think we've caught it. The irony? Real pleasure, the kind that feeds the soul, is quiet. It doesn't demand or distract. It doesn't numb, but expands. It's found in deep conversations, in finishing something we feared, in waking up to the freedom of no longer needing what once controlled us. Yet we don't crave this kind of pleasure because it is hard. It requires presence, courage, and truth, but it is the only pleasure worth craving. Pleasure as a translator, the language of avoidance. Let's rewind. Imagine yourself as a child again. You fall and scrape your knee. It hurts. You cry. But instead of comfort, someone hands you a cookie or turns on a cartoon. Pleasure becomes your translator, speaking for your pain when words fail. It's a neurologically ingrained lesson. Pain equals punishment. Feeling equals weakness. And the solution is distraction. So you grow fluent in this language of avoidance. Pleasure dances when you're too afraid to say, "I'm not okay." It smiles when you want to scream, and it laughs when you feel empty. Every time you replace real emotion with stimulation, you lose intimacy with your true self. Jung warned that when the inner world is ignored, the outer world becomes louder. And what is pleasure, if not the loudest thing in our lives? The endless scroll, the buzz, the binge. They scream so we don't have to listen. But listen to what? To the ache beneath, the longing for meaning, the desire to belong, the wound of being unseen. Pleasure itself isn't bad. It's sacred when chosen with intention, but it becomes poison when it replaces presence. The guilt you feel after indulgence isn't shame. It's a quiet signal from your deeper self, telling you that you weren't really fed, you just avoided your hunger. This is where many misunderstand Jung's shadow work. It's not about becoming darker or edgy. It's about facing the moments you betray yourself for relief and choosing truth over escape. It's about sitting with your wounds instead of plastering them over with quick fixes. The awakening, breaking the cycle of false pleasure. Now we reach a crucial turning point. You've heard the warnings, felt the tremors of recognition, and watched the mask of pleasure slip, but the hardest truth awaits. One that doesn't just sting but shatters. To reclaim your life from false pleasure, you must admit something terrifying. You have betrayed yourself, not once, but quietly, day after day, reaching for the fast fix, saying just 5 more minutes, avoiding silence because it whispers too loudly, telling yourself, "This makes me feel good," when really it just helped you forget. But this isn't shame, it's awakening. You are not weak for doing what you thought kept you safe. You are not broken for craving something that dulled the ache. You were surviving, and now finally, you are ready to truly live. Once you see this loop, understand that most pleasure was never joy, but sedation. You no longer chase the same things. The party doesn't hit the same. The scroll doesn't scratch the itch. The hookup doesn't fill the hole, and sugar doesn't soothe the scream. Because the real pain wasn't boredom, it was the absence of self. Imagine your life as a house, and inside lives your wounded child, your ignored truth, your unhealed memory. But instead of entering through the front door to meet them, you build an entertainment system outside. Music, lights, candy, comfort. You throw a carnival in the yard while your inner child waits unseen. Unchecked pleasure builds that carnival, a distraction from real healing. Healing is walking through the silence, stepping inside the house, sitting with the child, and saying, "I'm here now, you can speak." Jung didn't want us addicted to stillness but unafraid of it, to know that silence is not absence, but presence of everything we've avoided. True pleasure and the power of presence. Now, here's the final myth to break. You've been told that pleasure is the goal, that happiness means feeling good, that the more you indulge, the freer you are. But true freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about not needing to. True pleasure isn't the chocolate, the phone, or the ego stroke. True pleasure is the moment you realize you no longer need to be distracted from yourself. You can sit in stillness and smile, not because it's empty, but because it's full. Full of presence, full of truth, full of power. You become the kind of person who doesn't chase highs because you already carry peace inside. People notice. They see you speak slower, pause, laugh less frequently, but more deeply. They ask why you don't drink as much, why you're off social media, why you don't text back right away. You smile because you're not avoiding anything anymore. You're simply present, and presence is the purest form of rebellion. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. You are not a dopamine addict or a bundle of cravings. You are a creator of meaning, and meaning is not always pleasurable. In fact, it's rarely easy. It's demanding, exhausting, inconvenient, but it is real, and it feeds you in ways fleeting pleasure never could." So the next time a craving hits, pause, not to fight it, not to shame it, but to ask, what do I truly need right now? That question alone can change your life. It breaks the loop and hands you the pen. You are not your hunger. You choose how to feed it. You'll never look at pleasure the same again, not because it's evil, but because now you see it clearly. You'll still enjoy life's sweetness, laugh, love, savor, but with awareness. That awareness protects your peace, makes your joy sacred, your relationships cleaner, your habits stronger, and your silence golden. Because the only pleasure worth having is the pleasure you don't need to chase.